The Dodgers made a surprising move of DFAing a pitcher who could very much be a good fit for the Boston Red Sox. Why? More on today's Locked on Red Sox.
You are Locked on Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every single day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut, former ESPN social media associate and currently the host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part is it is free, no cost to you, because Locked On is your team every day, and we want you to get the latest in everything going on with your team. This episode of Locked On Red Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Locked On Red Sox, where we are getting closer and closer to the trade deadline and wondering what the Red Sox are going to do, what kinds of moves they're going to make. Are they going to buy? Are they going to sell? Do they see themselves as buyers? Do they see themselves as sellers? Lots of questions surrounding that, but there have been Red Sox players who have expressed their thoughts on it. And basically we're saying that they want to see the Red Sox buy. And it makes sense that they want that. Kenley Jansen was vocal last year around the trade deadline in regards to thinking that the team should add pieces, and said he was very disappointed when they didn't really go for it at the deadline. And he reiterated the fact that he feels like the team needs to add more pitching and another right-handed bat. So he knows what this team needs, and it's pretty clear as day that those are the biggest needs. And Trevor Story was also asked about whether the Red Sox had proven that they deserved roster help or not. And he said, I think so. Obviously, they've exceeded a lot of expectations from people outside the room. I think we expected ourselves to be in this situation. And he also said, I think we will add. The Red Sox organization has never not gone for it while holding a position like this. I feel good about that. That's not necessarily completely true, because last year the Red Sox were only a couple games out of a wild card spot at the deadline and they didn't really add. So it's still a mystery to know whether they really will lean in that direction or not. I mean, Alex Cora has been pretty vocal about it for a long time now, insisting that this team is a legitimate playoff contender. And he has said, you look around the league, we've been probably one of the best teams in the big leagues the last month and a half. We believe in what we're doing here. Now we just got to be patient and let's see what happens in the coming weeks. I'm hoping that Craig Breslow will listen to his clubhouse. They are the ones playing this game. They know what this team needs, and they feel confident in themselves that they can make a run later on in this season. So I'm hoping Craig Breslow trusts in that. But first, the Red Sox do have an opening for a pitcher to add a little bit of depth to their rotation after the Dodgers surprisingly DFA'd him yesterday. So I'm going to be going over that on today's show, as well as Kutter Crawford and the struggles he had in his start against the Dodgers on Sunday, and whether that means we should be worried moving forward. And Triston Casas, I'm going to be giving an update on him because he did receive some unfortunate news recently. So definitely going to be diving a little bit into that too. But the Dodgers are a team that have faced a lot of injuries this year, particularly to their pitching staff. So they were trying to put together a solid group of backup arms that could contribute out of the starting rotation. And James Paxton is a pitcher who was very good for the Dodgers this season so far, and is coming off of a very solid start against the Red Sox on Sunday night, in which he struck out 7 batters and went 5 innings. And if you think about it, it's not like he's one of the best starters in the league, and he doesn't really need to be to fit into the Red Sox rotation. But over that 5 innings, he just gave up 4 hits and 3 earned runs while striking out 7. So he pitched well against Boston. We could not really touch him offensively much until later in the game when the Red Sox were starting to pour on some runs. But it's definitely promising for the Red Sox that this happened. And it was surprising to me from the Dodgers standpoint because they are a team right now that is low on pitching. And I thought, based on the season that he's having as a middle to back end of the rotation guy, that they would want to keep him around. But they are getting Clayton Kershaw and Tyler Glasnow back this week. So this move is presumably to make some room for them. This could be a golden opportunity for the Red Sox to pick up a pitcher at a low cost without having to get rid of any key prospects, either not trading anybody if they just claim him on waivers or working out a trade for just some low end prospects and not having to give up a whole lot. He would be on the cheaper side because the Dodgers did DFA him. He on the season right now is having an average season, a 4.43 ERA with a 64 to 48 strikeout to walk ratio and a 2.46 batting average against across 18 games this season. The Red Sox have been searching for a starter all season long. As soon as the likes of Lucas Giolito and Garrett Whitlock went down and they knew there was going to kind of be an open spot in the rotation, there hasn't really been a solidified guy that they feel confident in that fifth spot. So why not bring back this 35-year-old who has pitched in Boston before and has that experience? In 2023, when he pitched for the Red Sox, he went 19 games, giving up 48 earned runs with a record of 7-5, and he had a 4.50 ERA. He was by no means the best starter in the rotation. His first half of the season was pretty phenomenal, and then he kind of jumped back into reality in the second half, but he was reliable enough. And the Red Sox don't need an ace caliber pitcher at the deadline because they've found that already in Tanner Houck, who has just had a pretty incredible season, Cy Young caliber season for sure. So if they were to bring in a guy like Paxton, he could be in the back end of the rotation and it would solve a lot of the Red Sox problems because he could eat innings and he could be a consistent fifth starter that they could place in there instead of trying to just experiment with different people. And it could be key for a potential playoff run. A guy who has had a lot of experience in the league, has pitched for quite a few different teams, and already has that exposure with Boston. So he knows what the environment is like to pitch at Fenway. So this could definitely make sense from the standpoint of the Red Sox needing an arm to add to the rotation and it not having to be anybody too crazy. And I've talked on the past on this show about different guys that they could bring in to add to the rotation that might be on the lower end via trade. And trading for somebody, yes, ultimately could end up happening. But this really is feeling like it just fell into the Red Sox laps because I don't think people expected the Dodgers to do it, especially with their pitching situation currently. I thought they would at least keep him around, just maybe even as a longer relief guy if they don't need him as a starter anymore. I think there was value he could have provided there. But since they made the decision that they did, it seems like it's the type of scenario that just fell into the Red Sox lap to the point where it makes sense for them to pick him up because then they're not really having to give up some of their young talent and they're still bringing in a pitcher who can contribute out of the rotation. There are a lot of teams looking for pitching help. So I feel like if the Red Sox want him, they're going to have to move quickly when it comes to getting him into a Red Sox uniform. And if that's going to be the case, then they need to be on it now and thinking about adding him now. And I would not hate it. I mean, he's not the best pitcher in the world. He's not the worst pitcher in the world. He's very average at this point in his career. But if he can stay healthy, he could at least be a piece that provides a sense of consistency in that fifth rotation spot for Boston. So I'm all for this move. I think it just makes a lot of sense for the Red Sox to bring him back and reunite with him. And I expect him to put up similar numbers if he does come to Boston. I don't think he's going to be any sort of stud on the mound by any means. But if he continues putting up similar performances as he's doing in LA so far this season, then that's what the Red Sox need. And there's no really complaining about a guy who's going to be out there every fifth day and control it at least and manage it a little bit. So I'm hoping that the Red Sox take a chance on this and they do it because I think it would save the bullpen a lot of fatigue having a defined fifth starter who can pitch pretty deep into games as long as he can stay healthy and is a guy who won't be one of the best starters in the rotation but doesn't need to be. And it feels like it fills a big hole for this Red Sox team that's needed at this trade deadline. So will they do it? Craig Breslow is the one to decide that. And you never know what he's thinking. But coming up, I'm going to be discussing another pitcher who did struggle in his last start. Doesn't mean we should be panicking. You're about to find out. This episode of Locked On Red Sox is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rivals' cities. With hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rivals' city. I love traveling, especially going to different major league ballparks. My fiance and I have made it a goal of ourselves to go to every major league ballpark at some point, and being able to just travel to different cities that we haven't seen before is an experience we're really looking forward to. So I'm definitely going to be utilizing Booking.com for these baseball trips because I really can get hooked up with great deals on it. So you definitely should take advantage of it too. You also should take advantage of FanDuel if you're looking to win a lot of money, whether you're huge into sports betting or maybe you're just getting into it. FanDuel can help you with whatever your experience level is. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. If you want to win lots of money on betting on different sports, check out FanDuel today. There's no reason to wait. You should also subscribe to Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's available on YouTube or Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app, and it will make sure that you're caught up in all things going on in sports, no matter where you're at. So make sure you check that out today as well. Kutter Crawford, somebody who has been very solid for this Red Sox team this season out of the rotation. And going into the season, I talked a lot about how I wanted to see more from him before I kind of make the conclusion on what kind of pitcher he is. And he certainly has overperformed this year and far exceeded my expectations for him. He currently has a 3.37 ERA on the season, but he has had some bumps in the road, including his most recent start on Sunday Night Baseball against the Dodgers. He went 5 innings, but he gave up 7 hits and 6 earned runs. He gave up 5 homers and just struck out 2. And that was tough to watch because I did talk about this on a Friday's episode when I was previewing the series against the Dodgers. And I talked about how they have a very power heavy lineup. Lots of guys in there who can crush baseballs, and they really take advantage of the long ball. And if a pitcher misses his spots, that is not a team you want to be doing that against. And Kutter did not look very good, wasn't himself. And he has had some starts like that where he's just given up lots of runs. On May 29th against the Orioles, he gave up 5 earned runs. He went 6 innings in that start, but did not have a great outing. And then his next starting after that on June 4th versus the Braves, he gave up 4 earned runs. So 2 starts in a row where he struggled and could not produce a quality start, but he has generally been able to get the job done. It was just a tough start for him against the Dodgers. And what I hope is that he doesn't let this start bother him too much and that he can bounce back from it and just focus on the next one. Because when you are one of the best starters in the rotation that you're being relied on every 5th day to go out there and perform, you can't dwell on starts that you had that weren't the best. And in this situation for Kutter, I'm not concerned about his stuff. He certainly has the stuff to continue to be able to succeed. And that's what's very promising here is he's in the 90th percentile for fastball run value, fastball velo, 27th percentile, averaging a 92.6 mile per hour fastball right now. So he definitely needs to get that up. But chase percentage, he's in the 90th percentile with 33.5%. So he's getting swings and misses. And K percentage, he's about halfway there, 59th percentile, 23.5% K percentage. So he's definitely generating the swings and misses. He needs to be able to throw that four-seamer a little bit faster, especially because it is the pitch that he utilizes the most. He's using that 34.2% of the time compared to his cutter 31.2% of the time, and a sweeper that he uses 20.4% of the time. He also does have a split finger that he throws 8.5% of the time and a knuckle curve 5.7% of the time. But in all summary of that, his three primary pitches are the four-seamer, the cutter, and the sweeper, which is fantastic. He should continue to utilize those because those are the pitches that work best for him. But he needs to be able to get himself back on track of not giving up the long ball and figuring out why he was giving up so many runs in LA. And the Dodgers are one of the best offensive teams in baseball. So that needs to be kept in mind when you consider Kutter Crawford and how he's performing generally. Is that to me is an outlier, a performance that he had where I anticipated a potential struggle of saying, okay, if Kutter Crawford is going to struggle this weekend, I wouldn't be surprised because the Dodgers are going to put pressure on opposing pitchers. And Nick Pivetta, who is actually the king of giving up the home run ball, surprisingly was able to hold the Dodgers. And that was a game the Red Sox should have won on Friday night when they were up 1-0 late. And then Freddie Freeman hit a grand slam off of Brennan Bernardino. And that was not a fun ending. And we know how that went. But that should have been a game that they won, and Nick Pivetta was able to contain the Dodgers offense. Kutter Crawford, on the other hand, was not so much able to do that. And if the Red Sox are going to make a deep playoff run this year, they are going to need Kutter Crawford to stay on track. And here is why I think he will. Because whenever he has had a start that wasn't the best for him, he's been able to bounce back. Like even after he gave up 5 earned runs against the Orioles, it's easy to just fold and feel like there's too much pressure on you and not be able to get the job done later on. But then he was able to get that down a little bit to 4 earned runs in his next start against a Braves team that is very pesky offensively as well. Then he went back down to 2, giving up 2 earned runs against the Phillies, who have had the best season of everybody in baseball right now. So he can bounce back after he has rough starts, and he's proven that he can do that. And so that's why I'm not taking this start and feeling like it is his new identity as a pitcher. I feel like his identity as a pitcher still is the one who we've seen perform very well in the majority of his starts, and the guy who has given up 3 runs or less the majority of the time, walking away with a quality start. That is the Kutter Crawford that I have enjoyed watching all season long. And it's tough going on the West Coast at any point of the season, just the late time zone and just starting games way later than you're used to, and especially traveling to the West Coast right after the All-Star break. I had mentioned on this show that the Red Sox might not come out and look as good as they've looked over the last month and a half or so prior to the break because they were getting comfortable and they were playing every day, and then they stopped playing for a few days. And sometimes that long of a break isn't necessarily the best for a team because they'll come back and they'll be feeling a little bit rusty because they haven't been in their regular routine that they've been used to. And the Red Sox the last couple of years too also lost their series right when they came back from the All-Star breaks. This isn't a first-time thing for them, certainly not the first time it's happened. And I feel like when you take this Red Sox team right now and just how hungry they've been to want to win and how much they've really grown into the team that they are lately over the last couple months, really learning their identity of who they are as a team, you can't just rule them out and write them off now because they have shown that they can win and they want to win. And I would say we need to give it some more time for them to bounce back. Is there a possibility that they continue to struggle in this way they did against the Dodgers? I hope not, but they do have a tough schedule coming up. And according to the schedule gurus out there. The Red Sox have the most difficult schedule for the remainder of the season out of any team in Major League Baseball. So that's something that we should be keeping in mind here. But Kutter Crawford has always been that 1-2 punch behind Tanner Houck in the rotation. And I don't feel like that's going to change drastically because he's sticking with what's working for him. I just think, the Dodgers just hit lots of home runs and he was not seeing the plate well when he was out there on Sunday night and didn't have the best command. So I think he'll bounce back, and I think his next start will forget that even happened, and he'll be back to being the Kutter Crawford that we can rely on. This rotation as a whole has been very strong and very solid. And if you listen to my episode with Andrew Bailey back a couple weeks ago, he emphasized that Kutter Crawford has really been able to perfect his off-speed pitches, which has allowed him to succeed more this season. And it's been great to watch that happen and watch the growth that we've seen from him all season long. And I feel like he's just going to continue on an upward trajectory of being a generally reliable starter. And he truly is still, to me, the number 2 starter in the rotation. And we're going to need him to continue to be that if we want to make a serious run down the road. So don't panic about Kutter Crawford. I think this start was an outlier. I did mention all of this about the Dodgers and how they just hit a lot of home runs. And it was just unfortunate for the Red Sox because they just could not finish the job in any of those 3 games, even though they did feel like at least 2 of them were winnable. So don't stress about Crawford. Hopefully he's able to bounce back quickly. He just needs to make sure that he refocuses himself, doesn't dwell too much on that last start, and that he can come back into his next outing and just completely make up for it as if it never happened. So we'll see what happens, but I have faith in Kutter Crawford. I think Craig Breslow does too. Andrew Bailey certainly does, and Alex Cora definitely does. So he'll bounce back. I'm not worried. I'm just glad the Red Sox don't have to see the Dodgers anymore in this regular season. Coming up, though, I'm going to be giving another unfortunate update on a player who Red Sox fans were optimistic was going to be able to come back, but now we're not sure. So make sure that you tune into that. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. I get completely lost when it comes to anything related to cars, so I need all the help I can get, and eBay Motors has certainly provided that for me. So make sure you utilize them too for any of your car needs. Are you looking for a fun way to play daily fantasy sports? If so, you should check out PrizePicks. PrizePicks is actually America's number 1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can literally turn $10 into $1,000. If you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week. From lowering select players' stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. PrizePicks will offer it all, and it is very forgiving, so it definitely won't ruin your life. Just download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. It really is easy, and who doesn't love easy, right? So you might as well check that out today. Also, just a reminder to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's available on YouTube or Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. And all of our experts here at Locked On will keep you up to date on everything going on in any sport, no matter where you are or what time zone you're in. It's pretty great because you don't have to sit there and scroll through Twitter all day. So make sure you check that out on YouTube or Amazon Fire TV. It will give you all of the biggest sports news. As the Red Sox think about adding pieces at the trade deadline, and we hopefully see them invest in this team and make those moves, they also are hoping that they can get some of their players back. A prime example is Liam Hendriks, who is scheduled to be coming back in August. So that would be a huge upgrade to the Red Sox bullpen. Hopefully he can provide some good bullpen help, but they still should get another arm to add to the pen as well. And can't just bank solely on his return because who knows how he's going to pitch when he comes back. Another player that a lot of people had high hopes for was Triston Casas, who has been sidelined since April 20th. And he had said about a month or so ago that his goal was to return around the All-Star break, and then the All-Star break became August. But he tore his cartilage in his rib cage. This injury is no joke, and it takes a while to recover from. He has made small strides in his recovery over the last few weeks, but the closest he has come to taking the field is when he's being interviewed, which is really sad, but it seems to remain the case going forward. Alice Cora issued a discouraging update on Friday night before opening up that series against the Dodgers, and he said Casas is still far away from going on a rehab assignment. He's progressed from taking dry swings to doing soft toss at full speed, but his return evidently is not close. He is expected to return at some point this season, but the problem is when that will be is still very unclear. There's just been no public timeline established for him. So it's definitely been disappointing because the Red Sox were expecting a big season from him this year after he absolutely tore it up over the second half of last season to finish third in AL Rookie of the Year voting. He's provided a 244 batting average with 6 home runs and 10 RBIs in 22 games this season. Dominic Smith has just not been a fantastic replacement. I mean, offensively, he certainly has brought the bat as of late a little bit more, but he isn't great defensively, and he has made some blunders at first base. So it's definitely been frustrating having to make ends meet with Dom Smith. I mean, he's doing his part to an extent. He's not as good as Casas, so there's definitely still a glaring hole without him. But in terms of a backup replacement, Dom Smith is just fine, especially offensively, with his ability to turn things around a little bit at the plate over the last few weeks or so. But this is definitely upsetting because I know how much Casas wants to be back, and I know how much of an asset he would be to this Red Sox team if he was here. And I just wish the Red Sox were a little bit more clear about it, unless they truly just don't know, which I doubt. But you know how sometimes the team just beats around the bush and doesn't always give us direct answers about injuries and where players are at because they don't want to know people's reactions if a player is going to be pushed back in terms of when he's going to be able to make his return. I feel like this is a type of situation where the Red Sox are kind of doing that a little bit, beating around the bush, not giving us a timeline for his return because they either really truly don't know, in which case they should just be clear and say that, or they do know and they fear that he's going to be out the rest of the season and they don't want to disappoint people by saying that now. So they just want to keep dragging it out until eventually they're forced to come to terms with that and just say it. I am a little bit worried, to be honest with you. Obviously, it's been reported that the Red Sox expect him to come back this season, but what if they're just saying that and they don't really know? How optimistic are they in him making a return this year? I feel like if the Red Sox want to be taken seriously as contenders, they need Triston Casas down the road because he just really was starting to click. And after the season he had last year, I was so excited for what he would do this season. And it's certainly been disappointing and unfortunate timing with his injury because I thought he was going to have a big season in which he was going to be able to provide a ton of value. So it's definitely a little upsetting. And I'm sure for him, it's very frustrating because he was ready to come in and be a big contributor this season. He was ready to go out there and showcase everything he took from last year and bring it into this year. And when he first got injured, the Red Sox were making it seem like he would miss a few months and then he'd be back. And now all of a sudden, when we thought he was nearing his return and it was getting closer, it's, oh, he's far away. He won't be making his return for a long time. That definitely concerns me a little bit. Whether he returns this season or not, I'm still not very confident in that. Would he be a key missing piece for a run? Absolutely. This year, can I deal with Dom Smith? Sure, but he's definitely not the ideal option. I'm not convinced that the Red Sox will trade for a first baseman at the deadline either. I feel like they're just okay with going with Dom. And every once in a while, Romy Gonzalez playing first base. I think they are fine with that until Casas comes back. I don't think they want to trade for somebody at first base who's going to be too much of a big commitment, because if they do that, then they're looking at, Casas competing with a long-term first baseman. And that doesn't make any sense because they've invested in Casas for so long, knowing he was their guy. So to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to trade for an expensive first baseman who's going to require giving up lots of prospects. Somebody mentioned Vlad Guerrero Jr. as a potential piece because we know the Blue Jays are going to sell at the deadline this year. But does that make sense? Do the Red Sox really need him when Casas is here? And if they're going to trade for Vlad, it doesn't make sense to use him as a rental because they're going to have to give up some key prospects. He's not going to be cheap. And if they're just using him as a rental, is it worth giving up that caliber of prospects because they wouldn't extend him anyway because they have Casas? So there are lots of moving parts here, but this was definitely discouraging news that we got on Casas. Hopefully we get the news eventually that he's ready to come back and that he's going to be doing a rehab assignment. One can only hope, but don't hold your breath on Casas coming back anytime soon because Alex Cora made that very clear that he is still far away from being in a position to be able to return. So tough injury for him. I always say expect the worst so you can be pleasantly surprised if something better happens. If you prepare for the worst, then you can't be disappointed. And the worst I would say is him being out the rest of the season. If we get an announcement that says that, I'll just say that I'm not really surprised. So don't get too optimistic. Don't hold your breath about it. But what we can get optimistic about right now is that the Red Sox hopefully recognize the fact that they should be buyers at this trade deadline and that they should be adding pieces around a team that has worked very hard this year to try to prove people wrong and prove that they belong. So I hope the front office doesn't rain on their parade and they decide to add the pieces needed to help put them over that hump towards a playoff run. This is a special group here in Boston, and especially with the latest speed that they've developed and this roster having guys like Duran and Hamilton and Rafaela who can round the bases really quickly. That's an added piece of their game that they have that a lot of other teams don't. So buy. That is going to be the motto over the next couple of weeks here. Will the Red Sox do that? Will they make the decision to be aggressive and add key pieces, or will they shy away from doing that because they don't feel like they can truly make a legitimate run? That would be very upsetting if that was the case, and that is what they decided to do. But we can hope that Craig Breslow will do the right thing. Let's trust in him. Let's hope ownership gives him permission to go all out and invest in talent that is going to help put this team over the top this season for the next couple months. So just trust the process. As always, keep the faith. Go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.